Hi, welcome to my shop. I'm Rob Cosman.
I'm Dave Lovett.
We're here to show you how we make our saws. You may have seen them. They were recently featured in the August 2015 issue of Fine Woodworking magazine. They did a review on tenon saws, and you'll note that we were given the best overall category. Now that was in the RIP tenon saw. That's the saw right there. I travel around and teach in a lot of locations, and I'm surprised how few people actually know that we make the saws ourselves. In fact, most people are surprised to find out that Dave and I actually build every saw that has ever left this shop. So what we want to do is go through the process and show you how we take these raw materials. I'm going to kind of show you briefly, introduce you to the materials we use. This is the material, it's a composite that we use to make our handles. So when we're done, if there's a handle, a roughed out handle in maple, and there's one in the composite, it easily weighs twice what this one does, and that's what we're looking for. One of the big features of our saw is the weight, and it's the gravity that actually trains you on making plumb cuts. Important, very critical actually. So we take brass bar stock, 3 32" solid copper rod, 20 thou shim stocks, our blades, nuts, split nuts actually, and bolts, and we do all of that right here under this one roof, and we end up with, actually we now have 4 different types of saws. We have our dovetail saw, we have our regular tenon saw, our new medium tenon saw, and we actually have a crosscut saw as well, and we've actually introduced another saw that I'm going to bring and show you at the very end of this. So without any further ado, I'm going to take you over to the bandsaw, and we're going to show you where all this starts with Dave at the bandsaw. It's loud. Start off with our block of composite, and Dave takes a couple of templates and does his best to get maximum yield. Now because there isn't any grain structure that we have to worry about, we're able to position these handles any way we need to. And when we're done, there's only small bits and pieces left, so we get really good yield. We have to use a special bimetal blade. This stuff is really hard. Dust is terrible, so we have to wear lots of protection, keep lots of air filtration going on. But Dave can do about 15 of these in an hour, which is actually really good time. Alright, so from here, we will take you downstairs and show you the rest of it. Dave has drilled the holes. Now we use those holes obviously for the bolts that hold the blade on, but we also use them as indexing holes for in our jigs. So I'm going to take this as it is, and I'm going to turn it into a handle. There are several steps. I'm not going to stop and talk to you about each one. I'll just kind of let you watch the whole process. Numerous jigs we have to put in, numerous machines we have to run around, and it's going to get a lot louder. I got to turn the rest of the machines on. So I wear safety glasses, I wear hearing protection, and breathing apparatus as well. depending on the thickness of the raw material, we'll go up and we'll sand this flush on both sides. And then Dave will go through a series of processes using a flat wheel like this. He'll go through and he'll sand all of the rounded over surfaces. Over here, we have several drill presses set up, and we have sanding drum sanders in there. And we'll go through and we'll sand all of the flats, which would be up here, down here. Our final step in the finishing process is to go through on this buffer. And we'll buff all of this after it's been sanded on the flap sander, and it actually comes out with a really nice polish. And actually what I'll do is go ahead and get caught up on these processes. Yeah, I'll do that, and then we'll pick it up from there in just a minute. step, once we've got it, now the outside can't be done until we've actually installed the blade, put in the bolts, and then flushed everything up. But we now have to cut for the counter bore for the bolts. So we have a little jig set up to do that. Actually, what we don't want this to compress while we're doing it, so put in a piece of brass. That plugs up real easy. Size holes. The nuts are the same diameter. The small bolt is the same diameter as the nuts, but we use a large diameter bolt on the bottom. So I always try to remember to do the small one first. In case I screw up, you can always make the small one bigger, but you can't make the big one smaller. Forgot a step. Dave usually does this part of it. We've got to go in and cut our slot in here so that the blade will fit in when the brass goes in. And that slot has to be perfectly on center. And I hate to tell you this, but I probably ruined this handle because all of the machining procedures we do before we do anything to touch the outside or the overall thickness, everything is referenced off of the same reference side, which is the left side. So all of this, everything that is centered is always centered to the left side. So if the material we're working with happens to be a little bit more than 1 inch, we have to bring that down to 1 inch. But from the left side, everything is always perfect. So I'll go grab one that hasn't been ruined and we'll pick it up from there. Yeah. Okay, I can't believe after doing more than 3,000 of these that I did this out of sequence. But before we get to that stage of buffing it, going back to this stage, having just cut the relief in here for the brass, we then need to cut the slot where the blade goes. And final step on that, we go over to the bandsaw, which I haven't got set up right now, and we finish that slot down to about here. So after we do that, we go and we would finish off, and that was what we end up with. So what I'll do next is walk you through how we do the brass and the blade, and then we'll put this together. Dave cuts up the brass into lengths. I think that's 10 inches long, and I just take a file and quickly get rid of any sawing burr that may be left on there. This is a little simple jig that I made to hold the brass, and I have a spacer in here, a 3-inch diameter cutter. God, I always have my safety glasses on when I do that. And that was fun getting that dialed in to where it actually worked properly. I take the spacer out, and this is so that the groove that we cut ends up being precise. It doesn't wander. check each one of these as soon as they come out of this with my calipers. And I check to see which side is closest to being right on center. And it's this one closest to me, so I will mark this with an X. That's the one that'll go into the handle. It's really important that that blade be perfectly centered so that it fits the groove that we've already cut in the handle. So from here we need to go upstairs, need to cut this on the table saw. Might be cringing when I say that, but I'll show you how we do it. And then we'll turn a lot of this over to Dave. We'll see upstairs. So I use a saw stop for this, and as you know, you can't cut metal as it is or else it'll trip the brake. But there's an override, and the override allows you to essentially turn off that safety feature. So I'll set the fence at 7/8 of an inch, turn the override on. Oh, wait a second. Now before I do that, I made just a little protective thing to keep that brass from coming back. It would be pieces of brass sticking in my arm after cutting several of these. This little piece of plexiglass with a couple of magnets in it controls it. As soon as you turn that saw off, by the way, the safety feature comes back on. All right, so from here, actually, well, we may as well just go down and show you. Let's go back downstairs. So we need to have a quarter round on both sides of the top and on the bottom and out on the end. And then we send that out to be engraved. Actually, we send it out to be engraved before we do this, but I'll walk you through it anyway. The router with a carbide 1/8" quarter round bit. See if I can find the switch. I know it's on here. Okay, then we put the blade in, and we hold the blade in. We use an industrial adhesive, but to secure it, we bore 4 small diameter holes that actually go through the brass, through the blade, and through the brass on the other side. Then we flare the hole on either side, and we put in a little copper pin. We put those in, and then we peen them on both sides so that they're nice and secure, and then I will show you what we end up with upstairs. So there's what they look like after the blade has been put in, the holes have been bored. Now this was a defect because the carbide bit broke in here. But we would then put the copper pins in. After we peen them, they look like this. So we've got copper pins that are peened on both sides. And then I put them and sand them, and I'll show you how. I'll get set up to do that. So give me just a second. This is a bit choppy, but I decided to show you this too. So I take an awl and I just flare that hole a little bit. Doesn't take much. Brass is rather malleable. Now this one I'm going to have to fix. This will end up being a saw sold at a discount because that hole has been ruined by the drill when it broke. Now to get it so that we have the same amount of copper on either side, we use a couple of scraper blades. So I move it over like this so that the brass is supported by the scraper blades, and then we have the distance between the top of the scraper blade and the steel table. Put that copper pin in there. And we try not to leave moose tracks. Those, in case you don't know, are hammer dents, errant hammer dents. Now I like to do this in several stages so that I know it's going to be even. I'll move that over. What you want to do is make sure that the brass the copper completely fills that flared hole. And in the process it fills the entire hole that we drilled. I forgot to mention too that we sand this bottom edge before we put this together. Alright, now we can take this, because we have to do them in pairs. We'll set these down in this little cradle that I have. Now you can really destroy stuff with a belt sander, so you have to get the knack of using it. And most of them are heavy to one side, so you're going to have to balance that when you're doing it. And there's the one. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but we paint down inside the engraving and then just not quite flush right there. Yeah. Alright, now I'll take that over to the belt sander. And we'll do that top edge. Takes a little bit of handwork because you want it to be, you want that radius on the top to be nice and even. A 320 grit. To economize somewhat, we use our worn down belts that are no longer any good for wood, but they still have enough grit left on them that they'll move brass. We got to get rid of all of those ripple marks that came from the It left a flat on the top as well. On a nice even radius on down the entire length, but we can see it best from this angle. Okay, get rid of all the mill marks up on the top. Nice and even. Now I like to flush this up out here in the end. And then I'll finish this one off with a sanding block by hand. If I find it. Not the one I want. We need to have one that's hard back. There it is. Can't feel through this glove. Well, the abrasive's all gone off of that, so I got to put some new stuff on there. All right, let me get this done up, and we'll come right back and get this finished, and we'll mount it and show you how we top it off. Now I just want to restore that radius after flattening that off, but you have to be really careful with the piece from now on because it's so easy to scratch that brass. Just a little bit more. Look at that. You don't want any scratches on there. Looks good. Now Dave will go over and clean off any of the glue residue on there so that it's a lot easier to do that now than it is after it's already handled. So give me a minute, we'll get this done up and then we'll install this in the handle. Okay, I have an order for a bone handle, so that's the one I'm going to do. So from now on we use gloves because any fingerprint oil or finger oil will cause the brass to tarnish unevenly. It'll oxidize and get a nice patina, but we found if you leave fingerprints on there, you don't even see them now, but a month from now you do. So we slide that in, make sure that comes up tight. Now we need one large, one small, and 2 split nuts. And a nut driver. Now I'll go over here to our drill press. And we use carbide here, and we break a lot of bits because the carbide is drilling through brass and then it goes through that hard saw plate. So you gotta be careful with it. always start these by hand. Make sure they engage properly. Like to make sure that they're well seated, and you can tighten but not too much. Okay, now back over to the belt sander. This sander actually first. Need to flush the brass up. Normally wear my mask when I'm doing this. In fact, I'm going to do it now.
Gotta get your balance just right so you don't wear one part of the handle out unevenly.
Okay, I got to get some oil and some other cleaning supplies, and I'll show you what we do to finish this off. We have 3 different size boxes. This one fits our dovetail saw and our crosscut saw. Sliding lids. We use pine and Baltic birch. This fits our large tenon saw, or regular we call it, and this is our medium tenon saw. So we've jigged up the process. We buy, what is this? We buy 6/4 pine, and Dave goes through the process of milling it. Of course, we all do all that in-house. We have a setup downstairs for cutting box joints, and then the last thing Dave does is split the pieces. And you'll see in a second when he's done how it all fits together. We actually apply the bottom. Now, the whole idea behind this is so that the saw survives the shipping process and rides intact. So we glue a piece of Baltic birch, 8-inch Baltic birch, to the bottom, and that makes the whole thing very strong. We pin it in place so the glue dries. The lid slides in, as you see. We use walnut, just because we have excess of it. Walnut, what do we call these?
Cradles.
Cradles to hold the saw, and we use these 1/8-inch maple toggles, so it really holds it nice and securely. So when we're done,
We slot them so that the cover can slide in.
line up the grooves, put the whole thing together, and then our ingenious way of gluing them together, we use cyanacrylate. Oh yeah, that one has to be cut. We use, I'll just tell you what we do last. We have a special clamp that we made that we put the box in place, and it pulls all the joints tight. And then we use water-thin cyanacrylate on the inside corners, which wicks its way in around all the joints. And when it's solidified, you have a nice, good, sturdy box. And then just as a precaution, we drive a little pin nail down in through each corner, actually on the bottom before we apply the bottom, so you never see it, but it helps keep everything together. That's our boxes. Now Dave is the finisher. He's the one that usually does this part. Gets it perfect, ready to put in the box. But I've seen him do it, so I know a little bit of it. So check the handle for any residue from the buffing wheel. Sometimes you got a little bit of, I don't know what it is off that brass, but it leaves some marks on the bone color handle. Just go in here and remove that. And wipe that brass down. Now check this for straight. And this is Dave's expertise. You can straighten those things out and get them just like a best arrow. Final step before he hands it over to me for the test cut is we oil that blade. Just keep it nice and clean till you get it free of rust. Okay, now the test cut. Hey, can you grab me a box for this, please? We usually test it in either a piece of walnut or a piece of pine, whatever we happen to have. This is going to be pine today. What I look for is perfectly straight cut. Now, that blade still has a little bit of a bend in it, so I'm going to let Dave do that, but he's gone for the day. So when I say straight, what I mean is from there to there needs to be straight, no turns. It may not be plumb, that's up to you. You've got to develop the skill to make the plumb cut or make the angled cut. But as it is, that's cutting beautifully straight. That just means that the set is the same amount on both sides, and on my saws that's just 2/1000 of an inch per side, which would be a sheet of writing paper sliced down the middle. And we set that in place, put the toggles on there. Jake, you want to find me the little piece of foam that we pack in there to keep that from slamming into the end? Actually, I need a couple of them. We just tighten up those toggles. Put a little piece of foam in there, we'll get it later. The lid goes on and it goes out the door. Now I want to show you something that we're just working on now.
Jake doesn't want to be seen today. He put his makeup on.
This is, we've been experimenting with this for, wow, it's probably been 6 years. And we've just started to offer these on our site. A little more money, but this is same saw, only done in resin impregnated bird's eye maple. So we take this bird's eye handle, rough it out like so. That one didn't have enough bird's eye in it, so it didn't get to make the trip. We send it away, and under a vacuum they suck some kind of a polymer or some kind of a resin inside into the wood, replaces all the air with the resin. Essentially doubles the weight of it, which gets it up to what we need for the balance. It plasticizes the wood, so there's no finish on it. You just buff it, but it comes off beautifully. It's just smooth like silk in the hand. We polish up the nuts on these ones, and it's ready to go. Beautiful saw. What we do with these is I make them individually. We photograph them, we put them on the site, and we sell that particular saw. When it sells, we take it off and we put up another one. So if you're looking for something that has a really flashy handle, then you might want to go in there and check that out. So that's the story behind Cosman saws. We guarantee them to cut perfectly straight in anybody's hand. And as I mentioned, straight means shortest distance between 2 points. You have to learn to make the perfect plumb cut, the perfect angled cut, but that'll all come with a little bit of practice. We've got some new products coming out that'll actually help you do that as well. We make crosscut saw, our dovetail saw, our medium tenon, and our regular size tenon. So if you're interested, visit www.RobCosman.com. They're all on there, and we'd be happy to send you one out. Any questions, just send them to them. We'll try to do our best to get them answered. See you.